What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode, the second episode of the season of Burning Questions here by Fantasy Football Scout. The season is up and running. We've had the first game week, and as I'm sure we all expected, it wasn't without its ups and downs. We will go through all of that, whether you own Barco, whether you own QUANSAH and NKUNKU, or you're just having a lovely week with lots of points. We will look at it all during today's stream. We are back, all three of us, going into game week 2. First of all, Tom, how are we doing?
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. Obviously, Chelsea weren't as expected, or maybe it was as expected. I don't know, but that was a bit disappointing. But FPL went well, and I've already made a transfer, so we're off.
We're off. No spoilers, no spoilers. We'll get into that. Just before we get to Andy, if someone in the stream could just give us a thumbs up that the sound is all working. Some people said that we were a little bit off last week. So someone just give us a thumbs up in the chat. That'd be great. But Andy, how are we doing?
Let's see. I don't know. I think I'm here for your, therapy this week, and it's been a tough start, but one game week, so let's get going.
Let's have a look at those starts then. We're going to start off with Tom. So 65 points for you. Talk us through it.
Yeah, so I'll just quickly read it out for the podcast. I had Henderson in goal, Gabriel, Hall, Porro, Saka, Jota, Smith Rowe, and Kunku, Solanke, Isak, and Haaland, and then I benched QUANSAH, Gvardiol, and Sangare as well. From the last stream, the changes that I had to do, I had to take Bob out, unfortunately, because he was injured. And I had to get rid of Murphy as well, because that was sort of my rotation plan. So I got Smith Rowe in a little bit reluctantly, because I thought he would blank in game week 1, and he did, but he looks all right now. And then that allowed me to get Porro, I think. I can't actually remember what I looked like last week, but yeah. So I was pretty happy. Isak was disappointing, but then again, he did get a return, so that's fine. And then benching Gvardiol for Lewis Hall didn't really work out in the end, but it wasn't too damaging. And then obviously QUANSAH was the disappointing one, which we'll talk about later. But spoiler alert, he's not there anymore.
Interesting for you that you went QUANSAH and you just didn't play him. Like, I thought game week 1 was part of the reason people wanted him. So you've gone with him. He hasn't played, and now you've sold him already. So he's played all of a bench appearance for you.
Yeah, it was looking ahead to 4 and 5 really. I thought it was a risk worth taking.
Yeah.
Because Spurs play Arsenal and Arsenal play City, obviously my defenders. So I thought he'd be good cover. I didn't think that Slot would give up on him after 45 minutes, but we've learned that Slot is pretty ruthless. He's pretty honest as well, which is good. And to be honest, it wouldn't really shock me massively if he came back in, because a young player is obviously going to be gutted. He might just say, "Look, have another go," because he was good in pre-season. But yeah,
I can just
I've
see
given
him.
up on him.
I can just see him like 3 weeks into the season when Darwin starts, gets hooked off at half time, and the interview afterwards, he goes, "We were missing too many chances," just like he said to. I could just see the interview already. We'll talk about QUANSAH as well. Yeah, good start, 65. Solanke was very unlucky. I think Spurs were surprising that he didn't finish the chances. He definitely got them, and I still think he'll be, not happy with a 2-pointer, but must be pretty pleased with the performance he put in. He seemed very focal to Spurs in that game.
Yeah, I mean, he should have scored. Let's be fair. That first header, or the second one of the headers was really good chance. And he stayed on towards the end as well, which I was a little bit surprised by. I actually was sort of on my phone at the end of the game when Richarlison came on, and I just assumed Solanke had gone off, and then I saw him. So that was funny. But yeah, he played 90, so that's obviously a bit of a bonus. And yeah, Everton at home this week with Michael Keane, and potentially without a right back as well. So it could be James Garner at right back, which may be good for Son. But yeah, Solanke, definitely not a sell or anything panicky.
Yeah, talking of Spurs, Andy, let's have a look at yours next. Of course, Son was the big punt for you going into game week 1. Didn't come out with it. How are you feeling about the rest of your team?
Yeah, I think it's just one key player that I'm missing that I'm kind of upset about, which is obviously not having Saka, right? Right until the last moment, I would say maybe an hour or two before the deadline on Friday, I had 2 drafts. One included Son and Saka in one draft, and the other one was this one, obviously. And I just felt at the last moment that spending too many funds on Son plus Saka plus Haaland would weaken the team too much. I remember it was like Emmett Smith-Rowe, Muniz, João Pedro, and I think like Rogers would have had to start. So it was just too weak of a draft, which is why I ended up here. I knew going into the week that I would be picking my battle with Son and versus Saka. I always knew Saka would be performing well. So, it's something that I knew going into it. But regardless, when Saka did score and have an assist, it was a heartbreaker to say the least, right? Because now I have to stick it out. I have to try to play the next fixture. Maybe I can consider going straight from Son to Saka because I do have zero point 0.5 in the bank in game week 3. But that's the big thing that's, high above my head in a dark cloud, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously the squad is starting to get thin, right? QUANSAH is something we need to discuss today. I think I have a mixed opinion on it. Porro looked great. At the same time, he's injured, but I do think that he came off with like a knock. So I think he should be fine for the next game week. I'm no doctor, so we'll see. And then obviously NKUNKU issue is a big thing. And the big unfortunate thing over the weekend was Eze could have had a monster haul, and it just kind of, that's how FPL turns out to be. So QUANSAH coming off at halftime, Eze with a monster haul that was missed, Isak captain with a red card. I guess these things happen. Yeah. So off to a rough start, to say the least.
Yeah, looking at those like 3 things there, they are very 50-50 and unlucky things that have happened in game week 1, and unfortunately they seem to all have happened at the same time. I agree, like Son, we were talking about it, up against that Everton defence who look like they've got 2 first choice defenders and they both play on the other side to where Son is, definitely bodes well for him and how badly they defended in game week 1. So yeah, all eyes on Pedro Porro as well. I know some people in the chat are asking. We basically don't know. Like, he's had problems with his ankle before, which has seen him miss games, but there's a lot going around that seems to imply that he's going to be fine, but none of it comes from Porro, none of it comes from the club, none of it comes from the manager. So there's a lot of speculation based off freeze frames and stills of the moment that it happened. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But I agree, Eze is not in my team, and is probably the one that I look at that I'm considering buying this week. So I got off with a few of the 50-50 decisions going my way. So I went Chris Wood up front. I decided to go Gabriel and Porro in defence. Smith Rowe and Kunku, my 2 midfielders that didn't perform particularly well, but they had their difficult games in game week 1. So I was hoping for maybe something from one of them, but I didn't get that. But Chris Wood's 9-pointer was a big relief, looking at like Salah's returns and a few of the others as well. We might be looking at a transfer out for him very soon already, though, with links to other strikers as well during the window. So 75 for me. Trent, Gabriel, Porro, Jota. Jota's an interesting one, and we'll probably talk about him when we talk about midfielders. Was very impressed with him, and I think he looks like a really solid option for the next sort of 5 or 6 weeks, particularly until they get Champions League back. My thought was that they look like a little bit, they just want to create big chances. Last year it was like under Klopp, they just created a massive chances and hoped that they'd go in. Like, how many times did we sit here last year and say, like Liverpool took 25 shots and they only scored once, or they failed to score, or something like that? Like, they'd take a whole load of shots. This year it feels a little bit like less shots, but more like big, clear-cut chances. And if you're going to do that, Jota is the man you want, because he is the guy who's going to finish the big chances. Whereas if you're doing mass market, like 25 shots, maybe Darwin's slightly better because he's just going to be in the right position. But I was impressed with Jota and Liverpool at the weekend. Of course, no Salah for any of us though. So it could have been better.
We should say as well, Nunes didn't even come on, which I think is good news.
Yeah. Absolutely. After all this speculation that he wanted him to be his number 9, and then he doesn't even get any minutes away at Ipswich in game week 1, is interesting. So we're going to start by having a look at Liverpool defensively, particularly QUANSAH, one of the big burning questions of the week, let's say. So what we've got here is the Liverpool players, the number of duels they won and the number of duels they won in that game against Ipswich at the weekend. So we heard that Arne Slot said he took him off half time because he didn't win enough duels, and we do see that. He had 8 duels in the first half. He won 4 of them, so lost 50% of his ground duels and 50% of his aerial duels. And then Konate came on, had 5 duels and won 4 of them, right? He saw the mistakes and made the switch. You two, as QUANSAH owners, I feel like you've got slightly different opinions on it. Let's start with you, Andy. How do you feel about that, first of all, as a manager decision at halftime to take off a young centre-back, but he's obviously noticed a mistake. And what do you think about it for this weekend?
Let's start off with a plug. No more than 3 or 4 plugs today, guys. But please do hit the like button and subscribe to the FF Scout YouTube channel. And also, please remember that we have a 40% off discount for membership. So we really want to, gain more community members in the FF Scout website as well. Plus, we have a great app, so do check it out. On the note of QUANSAH, it's really, really complex puzzle, right? I also understand why a lot of people made that move last night to either Robinson or even some considered, I think, Rico Lewis, right?
Yeah.
Because he did drop in price by 0.1 for those that might not be aware. I mean, like, the way you put this, Harry, where like if you just compare duel to duel, aerial duel, like, I have nothing to say, right? Obviously, QUANSAH is much more capable according to these numbers, but it is a small sample size. And I'm just very genuinely confused as to why he came off, because even though he says that he was losing duels, I actually thought QUANSAH looked quite good in the first half. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong things, but I thought he looked pretty decent. He was very involved. I thought that, Slot has him and Van Dijk working very closely together, and they operated really well on the right side with Trent and Salah, right? So I was very surprised that he came off. And when we're talking about tactical switches, maybe there is the case for this, right? Ipswich are known in the championship to have very high pressing, attacking mindset, right?
Yeah.
And personally speaking, if I was the Ipswich manager, I would probably have not played the way they played against Liverpool. But if you look at the first half, they were really, really attacking and pressing very, very high, like all the way up to the keeper. So all it takes is one Trent long ball to Jota, to Diaz to, break through that pressing. So maybe it's the pressing that caught Liverpool off guard. And maybe in the easier fixtures, we don't see that much pressing from the opposing teams. So there is definitely the chance that QUANSAH still gets a start and most likely plays more than 60 minutes. It's just we want to avoid the coming off the bench type of thing. So I haven't given up on him, but I also don't have a clear-cut answer as to, is he playable as an FPL option? Is he not? I have Robinson in my team, so I think it's a team-dependent thing, and I'm just kind of seeking a potential to start him in the next 4 game weeks is the way I'm viewing it at this moment in time.
Tom, how do you feel?
Well, I'll caveat everything I'm saying by the fact that I sold him last night purely for a value reason. Not necessarily because I think he's a bad pick or because I don't think he'll start, but I just didn't want him to... I didn't want to carry a 4.4 defender. And like looking ahead, I've obviously got Porro playing Arsenal, Man City playing Arsenal. So I wanted a guy who could come in and do a job, and Robinson does that for me. But we can talk about replacements later. But on QUANSAH, part of me thinks that surely Slot's not going to throw out his preseason after 45 minutes. Like QUANSAH was playing from the start because he deserved it, because he's good with the ball at his feet, because Slot has obviously looked at his centre backs during pre-season and he's thought that QUANSAH is the second best one. So, and then there's the man management side of it. Like there's a screenshot going around of QUANSAH on the bench looking really gutted. And, do you say to him again, like you're out the team now for good? Or do you say like you weren't great, but we'll go again? Against a Brentford that are going to be without Ivan Toney. So, Viss is going to be up front and he's a little bit, he's more of a ball playing forward as opposed to Toney. I'm not sure they're going to be putting the same amount of aerial duels up. So it wouldn't shock me. It really wouldn't shock me if he plays. But as I said, I've sold him purely from a value. If he wasn't going down last night, I wouldn't have sold him. So
yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, I just want to I think Tom, you make a very good point. It's like man management type of thing. Like how demoralizing would it be for him to have such a great preseason, taking off at halftime and then potentially not use him or come off the bench. So maybe there is that glimmer of hope that he gets the start this game week as a Slot saying, look, it was a tactical switch. But that is a perspective from like an owner, right? Like such as myself, where we're trying to like hope for the best. And from an objective point of view, like it's such a shaky defender. to have in our FPL teams, you know. So I do agree with Harry. It's just a high risk type of player now, especially at his price point. So, you know.
Yeah. My issue with it now is you basically need a first bench every week in case he doesn't turn up, because generally, I know he got subs at half time, but generally managers don't make centre-back substitutions, right? And if he goes Konate's probably going to get the 90. So if you are keeping QUANSAH and you are starting him, like, there is a very good chance he doesn't start, and then you do need your first sub. So effectively, you do need that additional defender just in case he doesn't play. That's the concern. And what I've got up also is last year, not to make anyone feel negative on QUANSAH, and I know it's different because of Tony, Brentford won the third amount of aerial duels in the league out of any team. Second was Luton. So out of teams in the league this year, they were second, right? They won 17 aerial duels per game out of all so that's second out of all the teams, which makes me wonder if we will see Konate come in and play the Brentford game. Interestingly, I don't have the whole data on the screen, but Manchester United, who they play in game week 3, were actually like 17th. So actually, I feel like QUANSAH is more likely to start a game like Manchester United, where there's going to be less of that. It's going to be more about playing with the ball. Whereas a game like Brentford, now without Ivan Toney, maybe he thinks QUANSAH is fine. Again, as you say, with Visa and Mbermo, but that concerns me as well. I just, going into this weekend, this is one of the fixtures you want him for, right? If you're starting him, you're running a massive risk that you just have the player off your bench. That's my only concern with it. That you just need cover.
I mean, the thing now though is he's 4.5, right? Sorry, he's 4.4. Correction. So, what are you doing there? It's probably better to build 2 transfers and then get some more money in your defense. I would have thought, as opposed to take a hit to get to a 4 million.
Yeah, I'll go to a 4 million.
I think if you have a playing sub now, he's 4.4. I think you keep. Obviously, there'll be people with QUANSAH and Barco, which is obviously a little issue. But even then, for a hit, like you need your defender to come in and keep a clean sheet to pay it off. So I think for now you can chill, especially with Porro news to come on Friday.
Yeah.
So I mean, let me ask you like the FPL question here, right? Like, let's say you have to start him, or he's like your 4th option and Barco's your 5th option. So Barco's dead spot, right? And it's like you prefer to play QUANSAH if you knew he started over your 3rd option. Do we start him as an owner? Or do you think the risk of him coming off the bench is just way too high? Like, Harry, it sounded like you're saying that if QUANSAH starts, then he'll get 90. So we're not going to run that risk. But
Konate.
You know. Oh, Konate. Yeah.
I suppose it depends who that 3rd option is, right? If your 3rd option is an Anderson now at Fulham, or if it's a Palace defender, a Villa defender, a Dunk against Man United,
Robinson.
If it's Robinson, then I play Robinson over QUANSAH anyway. But that would have been the decision even if QUANSAH had played 90. So if your defender has a good fixture, then I'd play it over him. If not, then I'd just take the chance that I don't see this happening again. Like, I don't see him going, you're in, and then making the same mistake and at halftime taking him off again. I don't see that. I feel like it is he doesn't start or he plays 90 now. I mean, I might be wrong, but if you've got him and if you've got a Barco or you've got someone else poor on your, like a Johnson on your bench, then yeah, just play him. And as Tom said, if you don't have any money in the bank, I wouldn't sell him now that the price drop has gone, because you can just go to a 4 million, and I don't like any of them either. So if you haven't sold him and you don't have any money in the bank, I would just hold.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Talking of that defender that a lot of people have on their benches is to talk about Barco. 4 million defender we thought would start. Apparently he had a slight knock, so he didn't start and then didn't come on at all either. I think the fact that he didn't come on at all reinforces the fact that there was something not right there, because he has played a lot of minutes in pre-season, and even if he didn't start, surely he would have got minutes, right? If he was fully fit. Like, that's the way I see this. So for me, there was something slightly wrong there. So if he was staying at the club, I would expect him to still get minutes going forward. But of course, we have seen today that he is linked with some potential loan moves out of Brighton to clubs, particularly in Spain, Sevilla, and potentially getting a loan move there. I mean, there's not that much to really say on it. Like, it's unfortunate that he might get a loan, but I don't think anyone's selling him.
Yeah, although there are people out there who've gone Johnson and Barco, which I don't know. I think he's probably going to drop in price this week, you would assume, if he's obviously 23% owned. There's people saying in the chat, is he going to be locked?
No.
Essentially, we're not 100% sure, but I would assume not, because if you look last year at somebody like Lukaku, who started the game at 7, he ended the season at 6.8, so I wouldn't count on that happening. No. But yeah, I guess the best ones is Southampton would be the best replacement, I assume, because they've got decent fixtures if you needed to make a move.
Yeah, I don't mind Ipswich. From game week 2, Ipswich's fixtures are really nice. It's just if you can get away with not playing them this week because they have Man City away, right? But from game week 2, like, Johnson is fine. Like, I fully expect Johnson to start games. I think what they did was a like Liverpool type deal where they tried to combat him. Someone in the chat saying Greaves as well. If I was redoing my team, having watched game week 1, I would go Greaves over Johnson. He's going to score 4 or 5 goals from set pieces, I imagine, this season. Greaves, he looked pretty good in the air in game week 1 as well. He's 4 million. So if I was going for a 4 million option, that, or you can go Southampton, as you say. They looked decent enough against Newcastle, just kept the ball really well. So yeah, if you are absolutely pressed and you need them this week, then maybe a Harwood Bellis or something like that. But yeah.
I love Rob S's question, will Barco's price be locked? Because we were discussing this before coming on, and I think it just shows our viewers are high-level FPL managers, like asking the right high-level questions. So Alan says he is locked before price changes. Tom, can you confirm this?
I don't think it's the case, because as Tom said,
I would assume not.
Yeah, we had players last year do exactly the same as he's going to do. Like, we looked at Santos at Chelsea as well, and a few others that they had price drops throughout the season. So I would take that with a pinch of salt, that I don't think he will be locked.
Yeah,
but
Andy,
we're not.
Where's your head at? Because you've got QUANSAH and Barco. Am I correct?
I know, and yeah. So, 1 second. Yeah. So I think I'm trying to survive 5 game weeks, and potentially I might have to pull the, game week 4 wild card. I'm just gonna kind of free flow it, to be honest with you, and I think I should have made potentially a move. I have 0.5 in the bank, so I was thinking like, let me take a little bit more time. I might lose out 0.1, so I might, end up going to like a Rico Lewis or a 4.5 if I need to. But I just am very insistent on trying to keep 2 transfers for game week 3, because I really, really like the way Aston Villa look, right? And I do have Rodgers, and this is something we can talk about in a little bit, but I also have that Saka issue looming. And I just think there's more damage or potential from those like high level, premium spot transfers than having to move here. So I need Porro to start, for example, and I think I'm just going to play by ear and see what to do next week, because I still have 3 playing defenders this week.
Would you genuinely consider a game week 3 wildcard? Well, we'll get to your team at the moment, but like that's like when, so like Son, that's after Everton. You don't have like Saka. You can bring him in. You can look at Aston Villa. You can replace QUANSAH. You can replace Barco. Like, you can have a rethink of it. We have 2 weeks worth of data. Is it something that you are looking at? And of course, like, if you don't make a transfer this week and next week, when you wildcard, you'll still have 2 transfers after that, right? And you can start building them up. Is it something, because I know some people in the chat have asked for a draft. We don't have a draft, but is it as something you would consider doing, a 3-4 wildcard?
I mean, potentially, right? Because the point of game week 4 wildcard, I believe, was bringing on more Liverpool assets, or like changing to the best Liverpool assets. And they have Manchester United, which is not a bad attacking fixture, right? So there's that. But I do feel like it's such an early wildcard. I don't feel comfortable with. So I haven't thought in depth about it, but definitely 4-6 is where I'm looking, and potentially having to pull the early wildcard, because as you mentioned, you can carry transfers on, and that could be very effective strategy as well.
Yeah, it's weird. People talking about like a game week 4 wild card, and I'm like, oh well, you need to use your transfers. You need to use your transfers in game week 3. Take a 1 week punt, but of course that's not the case anymore, right? You just roll and roll, and then
I guess the issue with that is just the Arsenal part because there's not much information we learned in game week 1, let's say, but if there's something that we learned is that we need to be heavily invested in Arsenal and Man City when the time is right, and it's just that Arsenal fixture between now to 6 is just so question markable, So
yeah, I know what you mean. But then like I wasn't that impressed by Villa in game week 1, and then they played.
Really?
I don't know. Well, I wasn't particularly impressed by Watkins. Like going forward, they were okay. Defensively, they were like fine, but they were playing against a West Ham team who, have got a lot of new players in there as well. I think if that Aston Villa defense and team come up against that Arsenal side the way that they're playing at the moment, like I fully expect Arsenal to win that game and win it quite comfortably. Then they've got Brighton, and then it's Spurs as well. And like we know what happens in those sorts of games as well. So I agree, like on paper they don't look great, but I still like I'm happy enough to like I've got double Arsenal, for example, and they'll play in pretty much every game. I might bench my Arsenal defender in game week 5 against City, but apart from that, I just like expect them to score more goals in any fixture than most other teams. That's the thing. They just look so good. Look so good.
I mean, they're probably fixture proofs. I know we're going on a tangent here, but I think when I was talking about Aston Villa and how I'm hyped up for them, I think Rodgers might be a steal at 5.0. You're right. Yeah. The defense was shaky. I mean, West Ham had plenty of chances. And the Watkins one, we have to really pay attention for because he did come off at 61st minute, I believe. And it could be him just, getting his minutes under his belt. But it was also for Duran. And Duran, scored and played really well as well. So they do have another option besides Watkins this year. So maybe that's a minutes watch that we have to be cautious about this year.
Yeah. Villa did the double against Arsenal last year. True, but I don't see it. I feel like it's too early for that to happen again this year. Like I think Arsenal is so up to speed and Villa just aren't. Like when they played each other last year, Villa were flying and so were Arsenal, and it felt like a more level battle. Whereas at the moment, I feel like Arsenal are flying and look great, and I don't feel the same about Villa. Maybe I'll be wrong, but yeah, let's see. Talking about Arsenal and Man City, let's have a little bit of a chat about Manchester City. So what we're going to do first of all is have a look at, we've just got their heat map or their average positions from the game at the weekend against Chelsea. There are a few things I want to talk about in here. A few of their defenders, Gvardiol and Rico Lewis, and then talk about some of their attackers as well. So, of course, they have a nice run of fixtures. We don't know the prognosis on Savinho, but people have been posting things like be back soon, and he was being posted saying oh, I'll be back soon, or stuff like that, which implies he's not massively expected to play this weekend and isn't massively expected to play probably in game week 3, right? The international break then comes and things look a little bit different. They've of course just signed Gundogan back, which is an interesting transfer. I think it'll be great for them. I think he's only been away a season, so I think that's positive. So the things I want to talk about are the fullbacks. Gvardiol, particularly for me, didn't look like Gvardiol at the end of last year. He looked like you were buying a 6 million left back, which is effectively what you are buying, right? But then Rico Lewis at 4.5, and then the two wingers. So Tom, you've got Gvardiol, very solid defensively. Like they didn't let loads of chances up against Chelsea, but he didn't get that far forward. Presumably you're happy with him just based off clean sheets, but how did you feel of Gvardiol's performance?
Yeah, I think there's a few variables. Obviously, he was playing against Cole Palmer, one of the best players in the league, so he's not going to be doing that every week. It's Ipswich next, so you would expect him to have a little bit more license maybe. He did get a bonus point as well, belatedly got a bonus point, so that's encouraging. Because obviously you need a few more routes to points if you're buying into a 6 million defender.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a slight concern because there were whispers of this at the end of pre-season. People were saying he wasn't as attacking. Someone in the chat just said Gvardiol without Walker is a different player. I take that because Kyle Walker is not as attacking as Rico Lewis. Like Rico Lewis ended up in the penalty box a few times.
Yeah.
Especially the end that I was sitting. He did actually score, but it was ruled out. But yeah, I'm not concerned. It's Ipswich, then it's West Ham, and then it's another home fixture, which I'm just looking at now.
It's in Brentford. I think it's Brentford.
Yeah, Brentford at home. So the next three are perfectly serviceable, and I'll definitely keep him because I don't see a reason to move off. Lewis, I think I was really tempted to buy Rico Lewis last night. It's the type of thing that I usually do. It doesn't always end well, but like it's just so tempting because you think he could score and get a clean sheet against Ipswich. It's like Lewis Hall in game week 1. He's probably the defender this week that you would put down for a 12-pointer if you had to choose one, I think.
Yeah.
So that was really tempting, but I sort of went a little bit sensible in the end. But I don't think he's a bad buy, especially if you're planning a wild card. I know you said you can save the transfers, but it mitigates you from carrying him through. So I think go for it if you're feeling a bit like a pun, and if you're not the type of manager that does things by the template, I don't really see a reason why you shouldn't do it.
Do you have any concern about Walker coming back in? Because I think he was on the bench, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was on the bench. He didn't play. Somebody put on Twitter it's the type of sub that Pep would make on 55 minutes when they're 3-0 up, which I suppose is probably true as well. But, you'd say he's got a good chance of getting to 60.
Andy, you still have QUANSAH. Any thought of going Rico Lewis?
Yeah, I think it's as obvious as it gets. The only concern we have about him is Walker, right? And there's no doubt in my mind that he's an exceptional talent. And, I would love to have him in my team if you knew he's starting every week and he was even 5.0, potentially even 5.5. Yeah. Like, maybe I would even consider him at that price point. That's how highly I rate him. And Tom, you're right. Gvardiol is played in a 3-back, and it was Kovacic and Rico Lewis in the sort of the two Blanche type of thing. But I thought Rico Lewis had a lot more freedom to move up the pitch, whether it be to join KDB or run around Doku once he got subbed on, or run right next to Silva. Right? It looked really good. So I like Rico Lewis. I like it as a punt, but you just need to know that shout out as like this might be another Barco situation, right? So that's my only concern about him. But if you want a punt and you just need him for a couple of game weeks and hope he starts, why not?
Yeah, as DeAndre in the chat is saying, Rico Lewis is definitely good enough to keep Walker out of the team, but will he? That's the question. Like, if I told you Walker started at home to Ipswich, not one of us sitting here would be surprised. Like, I wouldn't say, that's a shock. Like, if I predicted it, I'd predict Rico Lewis to start. But if I told you Walker starts, there would be no shock across any of us.
Exactly. And also, just like on a tangent here, like, it just goes to show the level. Like, again, like, I think your boys played well, right? Chelsea played a very, very solid first game against City, but without, who are they missing? They were missing Foden, Rodri, Walker, Stones, like some of their key players. Yeah. Pep still gets it done, right? Still figures it out, still finds a way to tactically match up against the opponent. And yeah, it just goes to show the evolution of Pep every year, changing things and trying new things. And even his B squad, which is Rico Lewis, could potentially start for any team in the Premier League, right? So
I think we've got to see what Gvardiol does against Ipswich, because if he's withdrawn again, as in withdrawn offensively, not taken off the pitch, I think then it is a concern, because we've had, I think in game week 1 we can mitigate it by saying he was up against Parma, and you can't leave. And Gusto, to be fair to him, was actually bombing on as well. So if Gvardiol had pushed up, I think that Gusto and Parma would have exploited that pretty straightforwardly. So game week 2 is a big one for Gvardiol. We need to see some good underlying data.
Yeah, I suppose the only question there is, if we see it in game week 2 and Rico Lewis starts, you then go, well, it might be different once Walker starts, and there's loads of caveats to that. But I agree. I think there are certain situations in that game week 1, game week 1 fixture that made it a little bit clouded in terms of Lewis and Gvardiol.
Yeah, and also just on Man City as well, like, how exciting was Savinho, right? Like, I thought he looked brilliant and, Mahrez-esque. So potential FPL option down the line as well, especially with the injury. I'm blanking on the name right now, but the injury they had on the right.
Oscar Bob.
Yeah, Oscar Bob. There you go. So Savinho is also on my radar, potentially.
Yeah, he went off at half-time, so one to keep an eye on. How do you feel about the attackers? Because people are looking at a potential, like, Bernardo Silva, Jeremy Doku, both in at 6.5 million, of course, have a decent run of fixtures. And despite me not loving Doku in a Manchester City shirt, he looks pretty nailed. And he was pretty nailed last year as well. It just doesn't seem like Grealish is what Pep wants. He was on the bench again. Maybe that was a slight injury that kept him out of the Community Shield. But how do you feel about them? If you had to pick one of those, Bernardo Silva or Doku, would you go either? How do you feel about people punting on them?
Tom?
I mean, I just thought of Eze straight away. To be honest with you, like, are they better than Eze? I'd probably not. Like, you know, you've got Foden on the bench, you've got Grealish on the bench. If Gundogan signs today, he could very well be on the bench. De Bruyne, you haven't mentioned. Mm-hmm. You know, Foden will probably start, I would assume, with Doku on the right, Foden on the left.
That's my only concern with Foden is they're running out of wingers, and that could just mean that Foden plays on the wing, and we all
De Bruyne's
know,
fit.
Yeah, De Bruyne's fit, Gundogan in the middle, Bernardo Silva potentially in the middle or wide. Like, they have a lot of central players and not that many wingers at the moment. So I suddenly have this concern that we know what happened at times last year when we owned Foden. As soon as that team sheet would come out, we'd go, is he playing wide or is he playing central? And with the wingers, I'm not sure Foden's worth 9.5 if he's playing on the wing compared to some of the others. So that's my caveat with him, that I probably would punt a Doku probably over buying a Foden at the moment.
Yeah, it's the same answer as always. If you can't be surprised if he's on the bench, but he could get you 20 points. Like, it was the home game last year, wasn't it? He got 4 assists and a goal.
Yeah.
That we all thought Haaland was going to smash.
But Tom, like, we talk about like a Doku haul. I can only remember one haul last season, right? And I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I just remember that one big haul. I can't remember against who, as you mentioned. And then also, like, you know, we just don't have enough sample size, like, to properly assume that he's a good option. So if I was to punt on Doku, it would have to be sort of a pick that's maybe 1 or 2, maximum 3 weeks before wildcard. Like, I don't feel like it's a good long-term type of play. Yeah. So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, no,
and his numbers actually weren't great against Chelsea. Like, he only put up 0.24 XGI, despite looking all right. So, and it's always been said that Haaland doesn't like playing with him because he doesn't know where the ball's going to go. And as Andy
completely
says,
the case. It's completely the case.
I'm not enamored by it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, same.
If I bought one, I know it's boring, but I'd probably buy Bernardo Silva over Doku. I just know what I'm going to get with Silva, and somehow he just has ticked along with FPL points for 3 years now. I just feel slightly more confident in what I'm going to get every week. Whereas, you can get a 20, the ability for Doku to explode feels more there when you watch it on the pitch, but output, as you say, is not always been the case. And I agree. I don't think Haaland loves playing with him. You see, like, Doku running up the wing and Haaland sort of in the box, like, I just know I'm not going to get this ball. Whereas with Savinho, it felt very, very different. Like, if they line up this year with Savinho on the right and Grealish on the left, like, Haaland, I feel like will score so many goals. But I do think Doku hampers him a little bit in terms of overall play. But he's a very good, direct player. A question that's in the chat a lot is the triple captain this week. So just to cover it, of course, the reason triple captain this week is popular is because we're likely to only have 2 double game weeks this season, unless we get a random postponement like we did last year. So if we say there's only going to be 2, you've got the triple captain, the bench boost, the free hit, and a potential mystery chip, which you might want to play in a double game week. So that is 4 chips that you may want to play in doubles, and only 2 potential doubles to play in. So if you are going to play a chip outside of a double, bench boost feels pretty locked that you want to play that in a double. That's more important than a triple captain, I'd say. So then you look at the easiest fixtures that you might want to use your triple captain in a single, and you've got like Haaland at home to Ipswich, for example. Is there any temptation for either of you to play your triple captain this week based off that? Ooh.
Go ahead, Tom. Sorry, someone interrupted.
I think there's a few tech issues with Andy. Or was that me? I'm not sure.
I think it's Andy.
Okay. I'll just speak. Yeah. Triple captain. I, I've thought about it, but I'm not going to do it, to be honest. I think I just have it in reserve, and there's always going to be Salah at home to Ipswich.
Yeah.
There's going to be Haaland at home to Leicester, Haaland at home to Southampton. Obviously, I'd take the point that he's fit now and he's going to start. So, who knows what's going to happen. And as you said, there's always things that happen. Like we've had, obviously, the Queen passed away a couple of years ago. Then we had Tom Lockyer last year, which gave Solanke a double. And there's always snow. There can be snow. So, like, I'm not too enthused by using it this week. But I always think it's overstated how powerful it is. Like, if Haaland scores a hat trick, it's worth 17 points because everyone captains him anyway. So
yeah,
it's not the be all and end all for sure.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, all good.
Yeah. I think I agree with Tom. It's just not in my DNA to FPL DNA, let's say, to triple captain someone in a single game week. I feel like it's just, a double always sounds better. So
I agree. It's one of those things that if you looked at it and you played FPL just purely based off predictions and stuff like that, a Haaland triple captain in game week 2, if we're only going to get 2 doubles, looks absolutely fine. But there's part of you that plays FPL in a slightly different way that thinks playing a triple captain in game week 2 so early on in the season, if it doesn't go right, there are so many other opportunities to play it. Something might happen and we might get more doubles. And if we don't, then there will be other opportunities, as Tom says, of Leicester at home, Salah against both of these clubs as well. I'm not.
The thing also is a couple of things that we know for a fact is that City are better at the end of seasons.
Yeah.
And that Haaland always plays when he's fit. So I don't think with Haaland you worry that he would get benched in a double, like especially if the league is going to be so tight this year, and they also don't actually have any other strikers.
And City,
I mean, to combat that a little bit, Tom, I do think Haaland looks really, really good right now. So, I know you're saying that he looks better. I mean, City look better down the line, but I didn't think he looked that bad. So,
but I don't think City looked that great.
Yeah, and without Rodri, like, are you going to play? I know it's Ipswich at home, but like, City don't play that well without Rodri, and he may not start. So, yeah, I'm not using it.
No. But if someone told me they were using it and we get 2 doubles later in the season, then I'm going to be like, fine. Like if I gave you FPL as a whole this year and said, we're only going to get 2 doubles, you've got 4 chips to play in them, you're going to play a triple captain in a single, you'd say, all right, I'll play it on Haaland at home to Ipswich, I'll play it on Salah at home to Ipswich. So it is up there, right? But we're not going to do it. Conclusion.
No.
Cool. Right. Finally, before we have a look at our teams, we need to talk about Manchester City's opponent in Chelsea. And before Tom shouts at me for the graphic that I've put up on screen with a list of Chelsea players who have the ability to play in those 4 forward roles, there are several players on this list who are, of course, not going to be at Chelsea or either are not at Chelsea already or are not going to be at Chelsea come the deadline, or of course not going to be taking minutes over someone like NKUNKU. But first of all, just to cover a few things before we talk about NKUNKU, is defensively, we looked okay, but I also expect us not to keep any clean sheets for the foreseeable future. That's my opinion. Like, we gave up too many like silly little chances. There was still too many like little errors in that defense. I don't love it. If you are going to buy one, I do think Colwill and Fofana will play the majority of games, particularly Colwill on that left-hand side. Cucurella at 5 million, I just wouldn't go near like a 5 million Chelsea defender. Like, you're comparing them to Munoz. So before we get into the attack, of course, people will look at Chelsea defensively because our next 5 fixtures are some of the best on paper in the league. Was there any consideration for you to go for a Colwill as your QUANSAH replacement?
I've got a couple. I'll just do Chelsea defense quickly because there's a couple of things I want to say. Gusto was really attacking and he was overlapping Palmer.
Yeah.
He wasn't inverting. So that's something to say. I think Gusto is a good differential, I think. I think he'll get a couple of assists in the next 6 weeks.
Sorry to cut you off. Like, Tom, isn't it normally Casado's the one that makes the run next to Enzo? Like, wasn't this just like a rare case where Gusto was making the runs instead?
No, so it's a slightly different system
No,
this
I
year.
don't think.
So yeah,
Yeah.
Gusto, our right back will get forward, but of course you've got Reece James potentially to come back in, which is the
Yeah, that's
issue
game
with
week
Gusto.
4. Yeah, that's fair. And then the second point I wanted to make was Fofana. I think you said Colwill. I would go Fofana because I don't think Tosin is that good, and Fofana is rested for the Thursday game this week.
Okay.
So he's not going to play, whereas Colwill's in the squad. So I think they're saving Fofana for the league, and he is actually a goal threat as well. He scored a couple of times when he played for us a couple of years ago. So I'd pick Fofana over Colwill.
But would you pick them? I suppose is the question. Like, do you think we keep enough clean sheets to warrant picking them?
I mean, what, we kept City to 1 XG, did we? I thought we were decent against Inter Milan. I probably wouldn't pick them over Robinson, no, because I went for Robinson, so that's obvious. But if someone wants to punt Gusto for 2 weeks, I don't think it's that bad, and I don't think Fofana is awful either.
Okay, Andy, any love for a Chelsea defender?
I think just your club is.
That's a no.
Yeah, that's a no. What it like? I mean,
he was
maybe,
gonna be
right?
he was gonna be polite about it, but that's a no.
Yeah, I feel
That's
like
fine.
I'm sandwiched between two. Like all season, I'm going to be hearing how great Chelsea is, so I'm a little worried.
Harry's
but,
got all negative this week,
You're
unfortunately.
not.
Okay.
You're not.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
I mean,
touch our defense.
I
mean,
probably
what's
wouldn't
going-
touch
yeah.
it, but I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. Like,
Yeah.
we're not going to go through 7 games without keeping a single clean sheet, in my opinion. So,
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't mind it. I mean, I think you guys looked good against City, but in the midfield and attack, what's going on? There's 50 players to fighting for 8 spots.
Right.
I just say that list is. I mean, you've got Andrew in on that list. Like, he's going to be on loan at Portsmouth. There's lots of players there. I think you've got to distill it down a little bit in your head that essentially against City, we played our 3 more defensively minded midfielders in Lavia, Caicedo, and Enzo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to happen this weekend. I don't think it's going to happen too often. In which case, I expect Neto to come in on the left and NKUNKU to move to the 10, which is what Enzo played. So I think NKUNKU is a keep. I know Harry disagrees slightly. I may be biased. Like, I'm not going to hide that. And you should take it with a pinch of salt. But I do think NKUNKU is much better centrally. And I think hopefully we'll see that this weekend.
Harry, shut him down.
So
Tell us why we need to sell him.
I'm not saying we necessarily need to sell him, but my issue is minutes, right? I obviously took him off either because he didn't like him or because we have heard that he's not fully fit, right? And we heard a very similar thing with Smith Rowe, but the last preseason game, they both played a lot of minutes, but then suddenly when the Premier League starts, there's a different intensity and he only played 58. I fully think he'll play central and I fully think he'll be better than he was at the weekend. But you've got to presume that Palmer is likely to play 90 pretty much every week. When you look at that front 4, like it's Palmer who played 90 at the weekend, it's probably going to be him going forward that gets the minutes. You look at the other players and he's like, okay, right. So if he does start Neto, Jackson and Kunku in those 3 spots, we do have players in all those positions who can come in off the bench, right? So if Madueke stays, he's there. If Mudryk is there, he goes there. Sterling will probably leave. You've got Mark Gay on the bench as well. We're still linked with Osimhen as well. We potentially are playing Dewsbury Hall in that 10 role as well. There is enough players in my head now. João Felix, I haven't even added him, can easily play any of those roles. That means that I think Nkunku starts, but I don't think he plays more than 70 minutes, like almost ever now. Like he might get some in the 10. If Jackson goes off first, maybe he goes up there. But there's so many players that I still look at it now at a 70-minute game for him. And I look at like an Eze, for example, and I'm like, well, he's going to play 90 every week. He's on pens. He's on free kicks. Like that just feels much safer to me. I don't think he's a bad pick, and I think he'll play minutes. But if he's playing 70 every week, that is a bit of a. It's just the minutes. It's just the minutes for me that concerns me.
Tom, I think last week we were talking about, actually as an NKUNKU owner, the biggest fear I had was the João Felix signing, because it's just literally a carbon copy of NKUNKU, right? Obviously not exactly the same, but they are multiple position sort of second striker type of player, could play on the wing as well. But yeah, I think Harry is right. Like I don't see NKUNKU getting more than 70 minutes. Maybe the occasional he doesn't come off and everybody else comes off, but it's concerning. I mean, I feel like Todd, your owner is.
Oh, we've lost Andy, and now all the cameras are going to be messed up. Oh no! All right, we'll wait for him to join, and you can look at half of Tom twice and the top of my head as well.
He's back. He's back.
Well, now we've got me.
Andy, you back?
We've got me twice. There we go.
Oh, okay. So I was just saying, Todd, it feels like your guys are running the club like a business. All right, I'm gonna spend this much money, bring in, X amount of players, make them compete for a spot, and pick the best out of the bunch. So
yeah,
I don't know how I feel about NKUNKU.
I mean, I think there's a wider conversation with Chelsea, and I know like the academy stuff is really sad, and I know Harry feels strongly, and so do I. But if we're speaking from a purely squad point of view, I don't think it's as big as people are saying. Like, half of the players on that list are not going to be here, and they're not even training with the first team anyway. I take the João Felix point on NKUNKU. We need to see how that shakes down. But I don't think, like, he didn't even bring Mudryk on. He didn't even bring on Madueke on the weekend. Like, these players are not as good as NKUNKU, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, but they didn't bring them on, yet he still only played 58 minutes and he's not brought on the other.
I think that's a system thing, because he really wanted Enzo as the 10, and I don't think he's going to do that very often.
My other issue is Dewsbury Hall. He just loves him.
But he's really not very good.
I agree. He looked way out of place in that game of the weekend.
Let's replace Conor Gallagher with the Championship Player of the Year.
And then the other one is Osherman as well. Like, if that deal gets done, it's just another one. So at the moment,
but that's Jackson though, isn't it?
It is, but then it means João Felix is not going to play in the 9. It means that João Felix will play in the 10, and then that's just another bit of rotation for that position. So it's just adding numbers to the equation. Right now, I'm probably 60-40 on keep. Where do you two sit?
Oh, I'm keeping 100%.
Yeah, I think for game week 2, you just keep him for sure.
I suppose let's
get more info.
The caveat is I have 0.5 in the bank, so I can go Eze. If I didn't have the 0.5, I definitely keep him. I suppose is the caveat to add.
If we play the same system again, and he's on the left, then I will probably be on here next week saying he's not a great pick, but I'm speaking because I'm convinced he's going to play central.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at.
Okay. Cool.
Harry, but if I was in your shoes, I like that move. I really like that move. Because out of the 6.5 to 7.5 bracket, would you two guys agree that Eze looked the best?
And Burmo as well, but the Brentford fixtures are not as good.
Yeah, like look, that's, it just goes back to the point that FPL is about finding a 90-minute talisman that's on basically every single set piece possible, and also just an outstanding, exceptional footballer, and that's Eze. So
okay, right. Let's put all of this into a little bit of practice and talk about our teams. Given that I'm considering selling NKUNKU this week, I will go first. So I've got Henderson in goal. I've got Trent, Robinson, Porro in defence, with Gabriel currently first sub, Saka, Jota, and NKUNKU, Smith Rowe, Isak, Haaland captain, and Chris Wood. And he's back again. There we go. I mean, my two things are, first of all, is what's going to happen with Porro. Secondly, do I play Gabriel? At the moment, he's on my bench away at Aston Villa. I just don't see anyone in my starting 11 who I'd play him over. So part of me hopes that Porro is not available. Apologies to anyone who needs Porro. Just when you've got strong cover for him and you've got a benching headache, it would be nice for them to make it easy. Gabriel bullet header incoming. It happened last year when I benched him. And then the only potential transfer is NKUNKU to Eze with that 0.5 in the bank. But I'm pretty happy with it, and I'll probably roll. But we'll see what's said in the press conferences about Chelsea on Friday. But I'm pretty happy with it. There's just a couple of decisions. Would you play Gabriel in this situation?
Well, you'll see that I'm not, so that's my answer.
I don't think I would play him, Harry.
Yeah. That's why I'm kind of hoping that Porro doesn't turn up.
It's Robinson, right? Or is there an attacker that you'd consider? Like,
I'm just not going to play a back four. Like, it's just not going to happen.
It's probably Chris Wood is the one, isn't it?
Yeah, but Chris Wood has such an
What?
eye. Just
Yeah,
Chris Wood
he
has
just
such an
had a
eye for.
9-pointer.
He did, but he was
No,
awful. Like,
but
he
you're
was
not
awful
going to
in
bench
that game.
anyone else, are you? Like, it's Chris Wood or Gabriel.
Or NKUNKU.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I'm not playing a back four. Yeah, I mean that's the other thing. Like, if Chelsea, it's worth caveating. Chelsea play a game tomorrow night. We've got a Europa Conference League qualifier on Thursday evening. So if NKUNKU starts that, I may well sell him before the deadline. Not because I don't think he'll start at the weekend, but then it's just another minute's risk for me going into the weekend when I love Eze as an option. I was very lucky not to get punished by Eze at the weekend.
Harry, do you have any like transfers you need to make in game week 3 and 4? Like anything you have pre-planned?
Nothing I have pre-planned. I will be selling Chris Wood at some point because he is on his way to losing his place.
Yeah.
Apart from that, my defense looks like solid until forevermore, unless I get an injury to Porro. But even if that's the case, as long as if Porro's not back, if Porro's back by game week 5 when the Spurs fixtures look better, I don't actually need Porro until then. So defensively, I'm fine. Saka, Jota, yeah, like it's NKUNKU and Wood, and then maybe Smith Rowe. But I've got Rodgers, so I don't have loads of things I need to do at the moment.
Yeah. I think you're in a tough spot because I really like the NKUNKU to Eze move. Like maybe I would be leaning there 70%, 30%. But at the same time, I just want to see what NKUNKU and Chelsea look like against a non-Man City team, right?
Yeah.
So,
Harry, how do you feel about Henderson? Sorry.
Fine. I don't like any
Fine,
goalkeepers.
yeah.
I will stand by
just because all the
this.
premium keepers did well this week.
Yeah. But then I've got loads of the defenses covered in my defense. So like I've got Trent. As the only one I don't have is City. But you can't own. I mean, I could own all of them, but just about. But yeah, I'm fine with it at the moment. I'm fine with it. Yeah. So I mean, if NKUNKU was close to a drop or Eze was close to a rise, part of me wishes that would happen, and then I would just do it. I just take the value. But the fact that neither of them look like they're going to change means I have to make the decision myself. But that's what I'm looking at. Enough of my team. Andy, you're up next.
Just on the Eze one, Harry, there's obviously you don't do it this week and NKUNKU blanks, Eze scores. They're playing each other the next week.
Yeah, again, as soon as that transfer gets close to being driven by price, it will get done, I think. So as soon as I'm close to being priced out of that transfer, I will just do it. So even if they play against each other, I will still just do it. I think. Do we play again midweek next week as well, away?
Yes.
This is not great. Anyway. Porro to Gavardio is an interesting shout, which I could do if Porro's out.
If Porro was out for like 2 or 3 weeks, I guess that would be an option.
Yeah, I just don't I don't need Gavardio. Like, I know he's a good option, but I don't need him in my defense. And when game week 5 comes around, like, I want Porro back. Like, it's then another transfer, and I don't feel like I'm massively gaining on Gavardio given what defense I have. But I might lose money on Porro. Anyway, Andy,
what's up?
Let's have a look at your team. So it's up on screen now. Of course, I think you're mainly looking defensively if you make a transfer.
Yeah, I probably won't make a transfer, but for the pod listeners, my team is Henderson, Trent, Robinson, Pedro Porro, Eze, NKUNKU, Diogo Jota, and Son, and obviously Haaland, captain, Isak, and Muniz up top. I was disappointed in Fulham to begin off with, but I do think now the tough fixtures out of the way and they have a run of good fixtures. So, in Muniz we trust. Isak, I felt like was very unlucky with the red card, so excited to continue to own him. Jota, no doubt about him as a great pick. Eze, probably the best again between that 6.5 to 7.5. Trent, amazing. Henderson, whatever. Pedro Porro looked okay. Happy to have him in my team, and then obviously excited to see how Robinson performs. And the big thing for me is not owning Saka or any Arsenal, and then obviously very disappointed in Spurs and Son. And I just wanted to talk about Son a little bit because in the first half I thought they looked pretty decent, like really actually pretty good, let's say. Did you guys watch the game at all?
Yeah.
Okay, so would you agree in the first half they looked pretty decent?
Yes.
Yeah, they were absolutely all over them, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could have been 3-0 by halftime.
Yeah, but and there's also a lot of like people saying how Son is getting older and he's lost a step. I don't think so. Like I mean, I wouldn't, you know, disagree if I saw that too, but I think it's more him being like into the captain role and being much more of a sort of a team first type of guy. And what I really didn't like about Son as a FPL asset is position wise, he was way too wide and not close enough to the goal, which I think is something that you mentioned a lot to me, Harry, last week, which I probably should have listened to. But he felt like the pass to assist type of player in the first half. And in the first half, him, Madison, and Udogi were brilliant on the left, and everything went through the left. Like a lot of the plays went through the left. Everything went through the left, and it was actually Madison that was very threatening. But what happens when you have a channel, the left channel being like very aggressive and attacking and powerful, it opens up the right side channel as well, right? Because you can just switch the long ball and then Johnson's there. But in the second half, everything went to the right, and that goal by Vardy was also off of a miss pass. And on the right side, they were just unable to crack like the right side, which makes the left side weaker as well, if you know what I mean. So I'm very concerned. I'm very concerned about Son as an owner because I feel like he's very team first mind. I feel like he's the pass to assist type of guy. I feel like he's way too wide. He's so good on the run. He's so good behind the space. And I wish Ainge would kind of like the one thing I do credit Ainge is that their set piece in the first half got better. There was some certain patterns that I really liked, but it's just so predictable, right? It's just Udogi and Power making the runs inside, and it's the same thing over and over again. And if I was a Solanke owner, I'd be very excited because at least there's another option there, and they were crossing everything to him. Like he's going to get assists off that second ball off his head, and he's close to the goal. Like, Solanke is a better option than Son off of this first game.
Yeah.
And I just wish that Ainge would somehow figure out a way to get Son closer to the goal and realize he needs to use his finishing. He had one shot on goal. How can you have one of the best finishers in the league not shooting the ball? Like, it pisses me off. So sorry for the rant there.
No, I know what you mean. I watched that game and he was not in the position where I thought he was going to score. Like I wasn't watching that game and I wasn't concerned about Son. I was concerned massively about Solanke. But yeah, I watched that game. Yeah, and thought what we spoke about last week was absolutely like coming true. That Solanke is going to be the one. And I know I spoke with my team about Chris Wood, and Chris Wood to Solanke is a transfer I will look to free up some money to do at some point.
I agree. I think it's just a Spurs striker, and the fact he's so much cheaper. Like I think if Richarlison was playing and they didn't have Solanke, I think he'd be in lots of teams as well because the Spurs striker gets chances. And as we touched on at the start, this Everton game this week, they haven't got Branthwaite. Ashley Young's suspended. Patterson's injured. So it looks like, is Coleman fit? I don't know, but it'll be a makeshift right back, a centre back that is not great. So yeah, the flip side of that though is that Son is going to be up against a very poor right back this week.
Yeah.
So I keep the faith for sure.
Yeah, and again, I'm definitely going to keep him. Like you have to keep him for Everton. This is the bet I made at the start of the season, and you're right. They're weakened. Ashley Young is gone too, right? So not that he's a key player, but still. And who knows? Maybe they get that early goal, and then it's goals galore, right? So. Yeah, I definitely am keeping the faith for this game week at least, and I would just advise not to captain him if anyone's thinking there.
Interesting looking at the bonus points for that game. Son and Solanke had the highest baseline for Spurs in that game. Son had got 18 on the bonus point system, and Solanke got 17. So as soon as either of them start getting returns, it's not a 4-point goal for Solanke. It's not a 5-point goal for Son. It will be a 6-7 point goal for Son. It will be a 6-7 point goal for Solanke as well. So yeah, it could have very
shots on target there. Yeah, Solanke.
Yeah, exactly. So things will very, very quickly change. And as soon as they start free flowing and start scoring goals, I think both of them, but particularly Solanke, will be very popular.
I think we should shout out Maddison as well. He was really good.
Yeah.
Just a quick shout out, just to note something to maybe look at. Because again, that's another conversation. He's 3 million cheaper, and if he's playing well, then it's even harder to justify Son, isn't it?
Yeah,
I agree. I think he's a genuine option this year because I mean, as long as he stays fit, basically he was on every set piece, and they're going to be eyeing Solanke off the cross as well, so certainly a good option as well.
Yeah, I know Porro scored, but not seeing him on any set pieces was a slight concern. But it is what it is. Cool. Tom, your team is up.
Cool. So I'll read this out for the podcast. I've got Henderson in goal, a back three of Robinson, Gvardiol, and Porro, Saka, Jota, Smith Rowe, and NKUNKU in midfield, and then Solanke, Isak, and Haaland captain up front. Then on my bench, I'm benching Gabriel, I'm benching Lewis Hall, and I'm benching Sangare as well. The transfer, I've made my transfer. Did that last night. That was QUANSAH out for Robinson to save the value, and really because I like Robinson this week, and then he's got some good fixtures when Spurs play Arsenal and Arsenal play City. In case I want to bench one of my premium guys, like you, I'm not overly keen on benching Gabriel because I think Arsenal, they're at their best in a big away game. I think at home they give away sloppy goals, and they almost did that against Wolves. Like Saliba just passed it to Cunha. But yeah, I'm not going to play Gabriel, so it's kind of immaterial. But I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a clean sheet for sure. Lewis Hall, there was a little temptation to play him and bench QUANSAH, but I think Robinson is better. We'll have to see if Jamie Vardy can do it again 5 days later.
Yes, true.
I hope not. But I'm looking forward to Smith Rowe against Leicester. I'm looking forward to Jota against Brentford. And I'm hoping NKUNKU can put a smile back on my face because last week I was massively high on him, and it's not looking great at the minute.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, I like it. Good transfer, I think. Particularly from a value point of view. If you'd have told me you've kept him and started Gabriel or Hall, I would have thought that's absolutely fine as well. But it is the value as early on in the season. That point 1 is effectively 0.5 early on in the season. So, like it. Solid. We've all got Henderson in goal. Has anyone got any inclination of a goalkeeper they might want to buy? It's just Raya, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that'll be a double up I think lots of people are going to do that when the fixtures turn. I think Leno, I said to you at Fest, Leno was the answer before he conceded, but he's got the fixtures.
Yeah.
I think he's going to do well. I'm not saying you should buy him, but it wouldn't surprise me if he's the top scoring goalkeeper in 5 weeks' time.
Yeah. Andy, how are you feeling about Henderson in goal? It's just something that I know we spoke about before and we didn't really have an answer to it. Is there any goalkeeper you're interested in?
No, I think it's just a set and forget type position. There's more important fires or opportunities to think about the rest of the position. So,
are we worried about Anderson though? Are we concerned about that?
I mean, if Gay stays, as long as they both don't go, I'm okay with it. If they both go, then I'll be concerned for clean sheets. Pope's an interesting one. I thought Newcastle defended pretty well. Aina Moore in the chat is saying Pope. Definitely agree. 5 million looks like they look like they had a top goalkeeper back in goal compared to watching them with Dubravka for 6 months last season. They definitely look improved with Pope back in goal.
Raya got saves as well, which is interesting.
Yeah, and a bonus.
He got 8 points. Yeah. Someone in the chat just on the Newcastle saying Murphy, do you think he'll start? That was really unlucky. Yeah. And I think he will because they haven't bought a right winger yet.
No.
And we did have a super chat, Harry. I'm sure you've seen that, but yeah.
I didn't. Murphy's an interesting one. They're not actually linked with any right wingers as well at the moment. So you might get to...
Watch that, Madueke.
I think so. If I don't have Haaland, who would you be captaining this week? My captain armband would be straight on Mo Salah if I had him and I didn't have Haaland. Brentford at home this week. He's thought about Son, thought about Foden. Again, we've spoken about Son, we've spoken about Foden's positioning.
Is he asking Son to Foden in the
would
chat?
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I don't think.
You're asking the wrong person if you want to sell Son.
No, I mean, I could see why people would panic, but again, I just don't think it's the right move to panic before a home to Everton fixture.
Yeah, I agree.
If anything, I'd captain Son, to be fair, against a makeshift right back and Michael Keane.
Yeah, that's the thing about me. Like, I might complain, but at the same time, the hope is always there, and all it takes is 1 goal, 2 goal. So.
It wouldn't shock me. Son could do a Saka this week for sure. And we could be sitting here next week. They're on the same points.
Yeah, very easily.
Tom, it's nice to have you on board because I get pretty like in a good way get emotional about FPL. Like I always keep it light, but I feel like you're a very cool, calm presence. So you got to talk me out of making. No, Harry's just he's an enemy of mine. I'm trying to beat him this year, so I need you on my side, Tom.
Go. Cool. To be fair, I agree. I think Son is still a good pick. He could have had something, and then Everton at home this week. You have to hold faith. We have been live for over an hour now, so we are going to wrap up. And so some of you have got questions. Az and Sam will be back, I think, tomorrow with their Q&A stream as well. So you can head over 4 o'clock tomorrow.
Yep.
Tom's got the schedule. 4 o'clock tomorrow for Az and Sam's Q&A stream, so you can head over there. Eze is unlikely to drop in price at the moment, but do check FPL statistics if you are interested in that. Thank you both very much. Game week 2 will be around here quick enough, and we'll all have a whole load more stuff to talk about. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, everyone.